Boxing Truth here. Just wanted to give a few thoughts on the Kovalev Chilemba fight, as Kovalev was taking the distance in a fight where he was mostly dominant. It was a dominant win from what I saw. Now, this fight was tape delayed, so if you were on social media or on any social networking site, you would have found out who won this fight very early in the day, especially on the East Coast, like around the afternoon. And the feedback that I got from people on Twitter, boxing Twitter, was that it was a competitive fight, that Kovalev looked flat, that he didn't look like his usual self, that it was a tougher than expected fight. But then I watched it with my own eyes, and pretty much watching the fight, knowing what the result was, that Kovalev won by a unanimous decision by majority of the wide scores, 9-3, 10-2 type of decision. And that's the type of fight that I saw. I saw a one-sided win in Kovalev, where he was tested a little bit by a tricky contender in Issac Chilemba, who showed his toughness, his durability, and also his solid skill set, especially with the jab. But overall, he was completely dominated. I mean, he won 2 rounds from what I saw. One of the rounds I gave him was the 11th. I was being generous, though. I mean, it was a close round, but it was like his best round in quite some time. He won the 4th round clearly. That was the most clear round he won in the fight, no doubt. And it was one of the worst rounds of I've ever seen in Kovalev. He got tagged a little too much in that round, especially from the jab of Chilemba, and he was getting his head snapped back. And it was a bad round for Kovalev. He didn't look good defensively. He got tagged with too many shots in that 4th round, and he lost the round clearly. But then Kovalev pretty much adjusted and took over, and he almost ended the fight in the 7th round when he had Chilemba hurt. Chilemba did a good job of limiting the damage, staying away from Kovalev's money shot, and that's his straight right hand. He was able to dip away from it, to use a lot of movement, and not stay in one spot. He was always moving around. He wasn't really engaging much in the fight, much at all. He was constantly on the retreat, constantly on the back foot, and that's what made it difficult for Kovalev to land his money punch, his straight right hand. When he did land it, he hurt Chilemba pretty much every time he landed it solidly. He hurt Chilemba in the very first round, landing a right hand. Then Chilemba adjusted to that right hand, and then he didn't really get hit solidly with it until the 7th round, and he ended up getting dropped and almost stopped in that round. Luckily for him, it was at the end of the round, and had Kovalev had a little more time, the fight could have very well ended in that round. And then Chilemba actually came back strong in the 8th round, had a very, very strong round in the 8th round, until he ended up getting hurt again. Ended up losing that round because he got hit with some damaging shots and got rocked, and was getting his ass whooped in that round, especially in the latter part of the round. He was winning the round until he got hurt. And then it was pretty much one-sided from there. And, Kovalev, he didn't have his best performance. He wasn't his most dynamic, wasn't his most impressive showing, but he still dominated a legit contender, a tricky fighter, awkward style with a solid jab, a guy who's never been beaten decisively. He's had, close losses on enemy territory or on the road, being the road warrior. And in this fight, he got outclassed. He hung in there with Kovalev. He showed his toughness, was able to go the distance, but I didn't see what some people were saying on boxing Twitter. I didn't see. I mean, it wasn't Kovalev's best performance, but I still saw a very dominant fighter. I still saw a guy whose jab was still on point. I mean, Kovalev's jab is just a problem. The guy can land his jab on anybody, and it's not just a a bitch jab. It's a power punch. He can hurt you with the jab. Was constantly tagging Chilemba with it, blooding him up with it. I mean, Chilemba was gassed after the fight. I mean, he really had to dig deep in order to go to full 12 with Kovalev, as Kovalev pummeled him in the last round and kind of beat the shit out of him in those last 50 seconds of that round. Pretty much making a statement of separate himself from Chilemba, showing that he was a much superior fighter, and fighting at home after 5 years, ever since the tragedy fight he had with Samakov, and he admitted that it affected him. He was a little nervous before the fight because it was a much different atmosphere fighting at home, that he's so much used to fighting in America, and that he's much more comfortable fighting in America actually compared to fighting in his hometown, which affected his performance a little bit. He was a little nervous before the fight, and he admitted he was disappointed overall in his performance because he couldn't get the knockout. But I didn't see a guy that was very beatable, or a guy that, like, after seeing this fight, I still don't think, like, I'm not flip-flopping. I still don't think Ward's going to win this fight. I just don't see how the hell he's going to get past that jab of Kovalev. And every time he landed that, his right hand, he hurt Chilemba. So the power is still there. He's still very difficult to deal with, especially his jab. He can hurt you with the jab. Didn't really go to the body as much as he could. But overall, it was a solid performance. Got good rounds in, got good work. Separated himself from Chilemba. Showed his dominance, and won the fight handily from what I saw. I gave Chilemba 2 rounds. And Chilemba is a better opponent than Adonis Stevenson's next opponent. He's a better opponent than his most recent opponents, Adonis Stevenson, to protect the chump. And he's a way better opponent, levels above Chilemba is, compared to Andre Ward's next opponent in Alexander Brand, a 39-year-old super middleweight. So Kovalev separating himself from tough, tricky contenders, and Ward's going to get a complete layup. And I'm going to laugh my ass off if Ward can't even get Alexander Brand out of there. If he goes 12 with that fighter, then I don't know. It depends how he looks. If he completely washes him, dominates him, but still goes 12, whatever. But if he struggles at all with Alexander Brand, then I don't know how you can say that he has any. He's a threat to Kovalev, but Kovalev did his job, fulfilled his contract obligations, 2 tune-ups, 2 interim fights, whatever you want to call it. And now he's awaiting his opponent, Ward, to fulfill his obligations, get through 2 interim fights. Kovalev said he'll be ringside for Ward's next fight on August 6th. We'll see if Ward can have a impressive performance against a very soft, stay busy fight in the interim before a proposed Kovalev fight in November in Las Vegas, and will be Ward's first Las Vegas fight if he gets past the August 6th assignment. I still don't see how Ward can beat Kovalev based on his performance. Kovalev's performance against Chilemba, still saw a very dominant fighter, very difficult out, very tough fighter to beat. And Kovalev's just not a puncher, y'all. He's more than just a puncher. He's a technical boxer puncher that can very well give Andre Ward a boxing lesson later this year. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.